One here, please.
Okay. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. My name is Annie, and I am the marketing manager at Duhno Marketing. So thank you for joining our webinar. I'm going to give you a little bit of context about why we are doing this. So at Duhno Marketing, we help foreign brands to grow in China in really short. And we noticed that a lot of customers come to us because they have issue with their TP. So it could be either lack of transparency, communication issue, different objectives, etc. And this is why we decided to write a white paper about common mistakes when partnering with a TP. And the second thing we notice is also customers don't care enough about data. And this is also why we asked some of our partners who are data experts in their sector to help us write this white paper. And following the white paper project, we also decided to organize 3 webinars, so each with one of our partner. And today we are with Daphne Tuijn from CHAOLY, who will explain to us how to audit your TP's performance. So we do have prepared a few questions that we received the most in advance, but feel free to react or ask any question in the chat at any moment during this webinar. And we will also have a Q&A at the end to answer your questions. So before we start, I also would like to know who you are. So if you could write down in the chat the industry you are in and whether or not you are already trading with China. So while you are writing, we introduce our 2 speakers. So today with us, we have Daphne Tuijn, co-founder and CEO at CHAOLY, and Benoit Raoult, founder and CEO at Duhno Marketing. So I'll let you introduce yourself, and could you please explain how your business is helping your customers today? So who wants to start? I'll let you.
I can start, so we stay on our side. So good day, everyone. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Daphne, for joining us for this webinar today. Happy to have you here. We know each other for many years. We have followed each other of our business for a long time. I'm Benoit Raoult. I'm the founder and CEO of Duhno. We organize, as Ting mentioned, we organize this series of webinar because this is really what most of our customers are facing. So we try to address these points through a white paper and through a series of webinars with our key partners that are involved with us, along us working with our clients. One of the first things I need to mention, because many people ask us these questions usually, what TP means. So TP is a short for third party, and in China, many people refer to TP as the e-commerce partner. So the person that is in charge of managing your platforms, your sales touchpoints, basically. So I prefer to remind the definition at the beginning, because sometimes we have the question at the end of the workshop. So I prefer to mention it at the right beginning. We also believe that we are a good person or good speaker today to really address this topic, because we have been working with brands for over 5 years that are usually involved with TP. So as an agency, we are working hand in hand with those TPs. And we also have learned to work with them, to understand what is difficult, what is easy, where they are good at, how we need to engage with them. And partnering with CHAOLY today and Daphne is also another aspect of it that Daphne will share just now. So thanks everyone for being here, and I'm glad to also have your questions in the coming minutes on this chat.
Sure. Well, hello everyone. Thanks, Benoit, for inviting me. I'm glad to partner up in this very interesting and I would say relevant topic. So yeah, a bit about the background. So I'm the CEO and founder of CHAOLY, which was previously known as Webshop in China. So perhaps a little bit of background. About 9 years ago, indeed, the platform was opened the platform Tmall was opened for Western brands, and we started as facilitating that as a Tmall partner, right? So we have the experience on that side. We also actually had our own online store called the Daphne Holland store on Jingdong, selling baby and mother care products. And we did that because we really wanted to understand firsthand what it takes to become successful online in China. Now, what we, I guess, could all agree on in this chat and in this webinar is that it's an interesting market, of course, but it's also very competitive and a very difficult market. So what we then had noticed is that a lot of brands are facing challenges to make their online business profitable. The cost of advertising increases, and often the TP was blamed, not just not us, but also we had clients coming up to us and said, well, can you help us with our TP or like our Tmall partner? And we realized that it's also really on the brands to take action on that. So we have then pivoted into CHAOLY, which is a data analytics company, basically doing two things. So we work with the TPs, their marketing agencies, and the brands to analyze their performance, but also understanding how you can improve it. And we'll talk about that later, what metrics to look at, how you can use that data. And the other part is more facilitating brands like Philips or Nestle if they want to launch new products to help them validate and improve their chances of success with digital experiments. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Daphne, and thank you, Benoit. So let's start with the first questions. So what are the metrics to look at when evaluating your e-commerce performance?
Everyone. So when we look at e-commerce performance, ultimately it's about sales, right? It's about your actual earned money, and not just only on the revenue side, but I would say also ultimately on the profitability side, right? It has to be an interesting business case. But what we see is that sales is normally a lagging indicator. It is the result of all the other activities that you do and that you can measure, right? So we basically break down sales in a very simple formula. And the formula is the amount of visitors that you get to your product pages, or in other words, the traffic. Yes, I see it now. The traffic, and then the conversion rate. How many of those visitors actually end up buying your products, and then obviously also the average order value, right? This is a very simple, basic formula, but what we like to do indeed is then further break that down. Tmall also uses a specific funnel, which is the awareness, interest, conversion, and then the loyalty funnel, right? So we like to break it down in different parts because these are the things that you can actually change. These are the things that you can actually influence, and then your sales is coming out of that. So maybe we when I also like your input on this. Perhaps we can go through the different parts of the funnel and see. Okay, yeah, well, this is interesting. What metrics to look at? Shall we do it that way?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Daphne. For me, I mean, I have the same experience that what you have. So meaning that ultimately what the TP's role is to execute sales. And they are usually focusing a lot on the lower part of the funnel on their side because they are basically their key metrics is sales. So they want to actually activate the sales at the bottom. But if you don't have the right amount of traffic at the top of the funnel, then you have few chance to have the right amount of people at the bottom of the funnel to actually convert. So this is really, I think we can focus on that, and we can continue to discuss on that because this is really true that we see that quite often happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely, indeed. So focus initially also on the upper part of the funnel, because that ultimately determines the results later or down the funnel. So yeah, it all starts with awareness, right? How do people know about your brand? Now, what we often see is that brands rely entirely on their TP to create that awareness, where we see that this is this should be really a true collaboration between the brand, the marketing agency, right, and the TP, because there are different ways of creating that awareness, right? Where do people first find out about your brand? Can either be already on an e-commerce channel, but it's often simply but on the social media channels, right? On Douyin, on Weibo, on WeChat, or whatnot. So we look at the traffic from outside, but more or also the traffic on the platform. And there are different tools, for instance, also on the platform to utilize, whether it is from your keyword bidding to banner advertisement to even live streaming on Timo. There are different tools, but I would say one of the key metrics here is to also closely monitor the balance between paid performance and paid traffic and free traffic. We have seen, even with bigger spirits brands, like really one of the big ones, when we analyzed their data, we saw that they had a relatively high free traffic. There is an optimum balance, right? You do want to have your paid tools also, because your free traffic only comes from the people that already know your brand, that are searching for your brand. But you want to have that balance between the people that know about you and the ones that don't know about you yet.
I completely agree with this. We see this as the agency. So as you say, on the agency side, we don't focus too much on the lower part of the funnel. Our job is really to bring the external traffic. We don't necessarily do the on-platform aspect. We're really off platforms. So our job is really to help the brand to exist outside of the platforms and create the awareness, the willingness for the people to eventually search the product on the platform to buy it. So when we see this happening for us, when we like to work with the TPs, to ask him the metrics you were mentioning. So how many traffic is coming from outside of the platform that you don't need to pay for? Like, can you measure that for us? Because it's usually a metrics that they don't have in their normal reports. Like when we start collaborating with a TP, they don't necessarily give that data to their clients right out of the box. So we like to have that metrics, because it's really a synonym of the wealth of the brand, I would say. And as you mentioned, it's keeping the balance between the free or the own traffic and the paid traffic. And this balance is not necessarily easy, especially for a brand that is coming in China. They need to create their brand. So the paid aspect is usually really big compared to the earned aspect. So this is a bit lower. But we consider on our side that we have to create that balance. We need to have the earned traffic increasing slowly and steadily to resonate with the fact that the brand is getting a name in China. If we are not able to achieve this, we consider we don't do our job properly. So it's really important to get that metrics, to get this value coming out of the TP, because it's really hard to measure on our side. On our side, we can measure only, okay, people click, people engage with some content, some aspects, so they should have landed on the shop. But then we don't really have the metric on the shop if the TP doesn't share with us these key metrics, basically.
Yeah, no, you're right, and indeed, that's what we with CHAOLY facilitate, is that data sharing, is that kind of like one source of truth, to have the metrics that every party and the agency and the TP and brand can take action on. Now, what is a very interesting part, of course, in China, and frustrating, I guess, for everyone, is related to measuring then ultimately the sales coming of that traffic, right? We all know that China deals with closed ecosystems, where you have the Alibaba ecosystem, you have Tencent, Douyin, and so on. There are ways to kind of measure the actual conversion also from outside of China, but they're very expensive. It's only for one particular part of ads. It's called Unidesk, right? But what we like to look at is what are other metrics, again, to evaluate whether the traffic that comes into the store is the right traffic. Now, I know with you, Benoit, you can perhaps talk about that a little bit later, but I know that Duhno agency is really good at and looks at finding the right target audience. But we have seen instances where with other agencies, for them, they just put their money in kind of like a black box tool. For instance, Douyin has the opportunity for you to just have an ad budget, and then they would allocate it to the traffic. Now, when we look at the actual product page performance on Tmall, we could easily see that that traffic was bad quality traffic. And with bad quality, I mean, the people don't end up buying. So here are two other metrics that we then would look at to kind of also understand the interest, right? So the main metrics in this case for measuring the quality of traffic is the bounce rate and is the time spent on page. Right, we could see normally it is true that like conversion rate goes down a bit if you drive more traffic. That is always the case, right? So, but if it goes down too much also, then you know, hold on, this is not the right traffic. We pay for it, but they don't convert into paying customers. So it's conversion rate, the bounce rate, you immediately see how many people bounce out of the page, and the time spent. With that, you can see their interest in the actual products.
You're right. When we work with the TP, one of the first things we tend to realize with every brand we work with, actually, and involving the TP if we can, is to look at the persona, really trying to understand deeply who we are trying to sell to. Many brands from abroad have their persona sometimes clearly identified for, I would say, Europe, US market, but it might not be the same people in China. So understanding clearly to who we try to sell and communicating this information to the TP is also key. The TP that you select might have a bit of knowledge about your industry, but you don't necessarily sell exactly to the same client at all your competitors. So they might know some other brands in your space, but you might be willing to sell to a really specific kind of persona. And we consider that identifying the persona is really having a map about where to spend the money. Basically, you're trying to identify who you spend money on. And if that audience, for example, you mentioned Douyin just now, Daphne, if your persona is actually not really on Douyin, then every money you will throw to get traffic from Douyin, you might have the traffic on your page, but that traffic will not convert into client. So for us, it's like wasting money. It's throwing money out of the window because, yeah, it brings good vanity metrics where we have so much traffic on the page, but at the end, we don't have sales. So knowing the persona is really key in that aspect.
Yeah, and I would say indeed for marketing agencies or for the agency, often they use as a KPI to the brand the number of clicks or the number, the traffic that they generated. But ultimately, it's about the quality of the traffic. Is that indeed your persona? So when another way to measure interest. Besides what we just mentioned, the key metrics that we look at obviously is add to cart, add to favorites. This is also particularly important when we're building up towards a shopping festival. Double 11 is around the corner, so to say. I mean, the preparation has started. So at the moment that actually the preparation behind the scenes, the moment that you start with your warm up, that you start with your advertisements, we all know that the purchase is always delayed and postponed until the actual discount is given. But every Chinese shopper, and including myself, I already start adding products to my cart, right? Preparing for the discounts to come. So these are also key metrics that we look at to measure interest along the funnel.
Okay, thank you. I guess you guys could go for hours, but I think it's time to jump on the second question. So why is your TP asking to open a new platform? So is the more the best?
Yeah, another interesting one. But Benoit, would you like to start on this one? Because
No, yeah,
you
sure.
get the
I can
question.
start. No, I can start, no problem. I also, please feel free to ask additional question in the chat if you want us to address some specific aspect, of course. Yes, so we see that happening quite often where the TP, especially recently, are asking the brands to especially open Douyin. Douyin is kind of the hot topic, I would say, saying, oh, you need to open Douyin. It's really important to have a Douyin account. And we always go back to the persona and the customer journey. So we say persona are changing, persona are moving. So it's a moving target. People are changing their habits. So China especially is pretty fast on that. The ecosystem is pretty vivid and pretty active. So you need to always be careful about this. But we've seen so many people asking about creating a Douyin page, and then what do we do with it? It's good to have a Douyin page. It's expensive to create all those small videos. It's pretty complex. It requires a lot of budget sometimes to make them happen if we want to have a high quality outcome. And then are we able to drive the right traffic to the sales aspect? So it's always the questions that we are challenging when we start to open these, I would say, high-level platforms. So on our side, view from the agency, it's really when they are asking to open, I don't know, another WeChat account or another Weibo account, and why do we need this? Is it useful, not useful? And we try to questions going back to the fundamental of who are the persona, what are their customer journey. This is really key for us. I assume, Daphne, you might also talk about the TP that want to open a new. I mean, you have a Tmall shop, but you might open the Taobao stores and you might open the CHAOLY stores and stuff like that. So that's more your side.
Sure. Well, yeah, but also just, because we do analyze and we look at the data from the different channels. Yeah, I mean, as you said, Douyin is a one that often gets asked. It's also important to understand like the purchase behavior, I would say, on a platform. What we see with Douyin also is often that that it's a very how to say a spontaneous purchase, right? So that also means that, especially for products with a bit higher average value, that there's a relatively high returns. So I would also keep in mind that, okay, what is your product? Indeed, also where's the persona or your target audience, but ultimately not only look at the initial sales, but see the return rate, which is another key metric that could show whether a platform is working, yes or no. I think one other interesting trade-off or discussion that we see between the TPs and the brands is indeed opening more channels. And on the one hand, that can be more for creating awareness, right? The top of the funnel. But as we all know, every digital ecosystem in China wants the sales on their own platform. So we now have a WeChat store, a Weibo store, Douyin store, Xiangshu, right? So all of a sudden, it's the term social commerce and social e-commerce. The boundary between social media more traditionally and e-commerce is blurred. And then it's like, okay, but do we want to have stores also on all of those platforms? Or do we simply use it more for creating awareness, but the actual purchase is on our main shopping platforms, for instance, Tmall or Jingdong? I would say there is not one right answer. I mean, obviously, the benefit of having stores on the channels where you also create brand awareness is that you minimize the risk of losing potential customers because they need to switch from one platform to the other, right? We all know every step you need to take in the buying process. If that means you find a brand on Xiangshu, but you can't buy it there, you have to manually go to Tmall and look for that brand. Yeah, on the other hand, in terms of operations, in terms of management, there is benefits to just keeping it to your two main shopping stores, for instance, one or two. And we always say Start with one platform, have your lessons learned, and only when you fully understand that, roll out to others. Don't do all at once.
Oh yeah, same thing for brands that are, I would say, developing in China, willing to grow. I would say the mistakes that we also see with the TP is they are willing to address all type of persona. So they will focus on really all the different type of clients and try to reach all of them. And somehow, and sometimes it's kind of spreading thin the budget. So instead of being really pertinent and present in a specific type of audience, then you become kind of a low tier advertiser towards the audience compared to others, and then you don't really come out in your campaign. So we also advise usually to say focus, focus, focus. So you want to sell one product to one person, so try to really stay focused on what you want to achieve. The rest will come, but don't be too greedy. Really make one thing happen well and get your learnings out of this one and then switch. So also in collaborating with your TP on this, opening new platforms, opening new keywords to address new audiences. You have to be careful with this. If it ends up spreading too thin your budgets, it doesn't make sense at the end of the day for what we have observed.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point where you say focus on one product for one audience. And one of our clients is with massage guns, and they have a more premium product with a higher price point and a lower price point. And I would say from top management, even overseas, they decided that their key focus would be more on the high-end products. But from the metrics, from the data, you could clearly see that the low-end product was the one driving the traffic to the store, right? So this is with your TP, also challenge them and carefully look at not just the overall sales number, but the breakdown across your products. You do want only one or perhaps two key products, your hero products, that you then focus on and that you push on first before you get too many. And it's carefully look at the distribution across the products as well.
Okay, thank you. So third question. So I am disappointed in the sales result of my TP. What can I do?
Sure. Artist, could you change the slide also? I still
yes.
see the.
Maybe it's taking a little bit of time.
Okay, don't worry about it. No, that's fine because I'm looking at what are the metrics. No, but could you repeat the question one more time? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So I am disappointed in the sales result of my TP. What can I do?
Yeah. Yes. Well, often this is what we hear, right? So we get the clients that approach us because indeed they are disappointed in the results. Now, from our side, we would say there's a few things to look at, right? If you're disappointed, I would say in general in life, it has to do with your expectations. So let's start with the expectations. What was the original sales plan, right? So, and what was that sales plan based on? We often see, especially for newer brands, where the TP simply wants to get a new client in, that they do show the future a little bit more fortunate or positive than it is realistic. So it is also up to the brand, and they can work with a data provider to see what is actually realistic sales forecast for the year. And we always say that that is based on a lot of things, right? Your forecast, but also your performance should be placed into context. I had one client asking me, Daphne, we sell 10,000 pieces. Is that good or is it bad? And I said, well, that depends. And so you look at a few things. It depends on your category, obviously, and it depends on your competitors in the category, right? So is the category growing or decreasing? And are your competitors, your main competitors, outgrowing, or how is their performance? So Timo actually allows you to have a benchmark in the backend where they show the sales of the industry average, but also the industry leaders, right? So we often say that when you work with your TP, we look at the industry excellence and see, well, this is a target that we can work towards too. It takes time to get there, but this might be a way to set your targets by looking at the industry excellence. So your category, your competitors, your historical performance, right? And your budgets, obviously, because the bigger the sales number, yeah, the higher the budget normally. So first of all, if you're disappointed, see, okay, but how realistic are these expectations? I would say, second of all, also understand that it takes time to become profitable. I would first focus on brand awareness, focus on getting sales in. Do not focus on your ROI or your profitability yet in the first at least 18 to 24 months. Only then look at, okay, well, how can we make this a profitable business?
Yes, on this question, so you make it really clear about the working on the expectations. We do an exercise sometimes with the TP and with the brand is to look at the unit economics. So the purpose of this exercise is really to understand how much we should spend in marketing. So overall, marketing is divided in different activities, but we can consider that, okay, on our product, when we sell 100 RMB of products, how much we should have spent in marketing to make it happen. And sometimes we end up with unrealistic expectations. So we expect to make 1 million sales. Okay, perfect. So how much do you invest in marketing? Oh, we invest 10. Okay, so if we look at the unit economics, then it's unrealistic. It doesn't make sense because you will spend less than 1% in marketing to achieve your target, and it's not the way it's working. Oh yes, but I would say back in France or back in the US, it's working this way. We don't invest that much in marketing and it's working. Yes, but how long your brand has been on the market? Okay, so for how many years people have known you? And then this awareness aspect doesn't exist in China. So also, it's not necessarily the TP's performance. It's also about how you support your TP to achieve this sales, basically. So if you don't help them by putting efforts at building your brand, building the knowledge of your brands in Chinese people's mind, then it's hard for the TP to be able to execute the result in sales. So we were discussing yesterday with one brand of chocolates, and they were really, we have found a good partner. They are doing a great job even during the COVID time. They just signed that partner before the COVID time, and then they were like, okay, they are doing a decent job. They are selling, it's good. They are making their investment in marketing. And we didn't really enter in that conversation of unit economics, but that was really my point behind it was really, okay, how much that TP is spending in marketing efforts. So to reach that number in terms of sales. So that was really the question, because then if the brand can support the TP with an additional, 10% of marketing, then how much more sales that would bring on the table. So we know it's also not linear. When you arrive, you need to spend more in marketing to reach. So that's why you were saying, hey, we might not be profitable for some times at the beginning. We might invest more in marketing than we harvest. So the cost of acquisition of one client is higher, and we don't necessarily make money on the first time. And what you were mentioning, Daphne, also earlier, what we'll need to look at is how many people know us already, have purchased one time and purchased a second time from us, because then it's the lifetime value of a client. So acquiring a client might be expensive, but if you have a lifetime value with your product, then you might be able to really understand how to spend your marketing budget properly and how much of marketing budget you need to spend toward your clients. Some brands are ready to spend for the first sales the same amount of marketing. That's fine for them because they know the lifetime value is really long, and this is where they will beneficiate from their clients.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, the lifetime value is something I would say that also determines whether you have a good TP or not, is to look at their mindset. Is it short-term win versus a more long-term strategy, right? We've seen with brands that, and like a very famous skincare brand, and their key product is like a foam a shower gel, and their TP heavily focused on discounted live streaming, which indeed generated a high amount of sales, right, initially. But are these the customers that actually come back and buy your product again at a non-discounted price, at the regular price? That wasn't the case, right? So challenging your TP on, okay, reaching sales, like a sales target is one thing. How do you plan to reach this? And what is the breakdown also on a product level, on a marketing and advertising tool level, and how much focus do they have on perhaps spending a little bit more to acquire the right customer instead of sometimes just dumping your products out on the markets simply to have an initial sales, right? And I would say this is also for the brand important to understand. What is also the business model of the TP? We sometimes see that the TP is also the distributor. Yeah, to that extent, if they take all the risk, if they have all the stock, then the TP is also free to set the prices, have heavy discounts, but that doesn't benefit your branding in the long run, right? So carefully think that also as a brand, short-term win versus long-term brand building. That's important.
So now, and maybe to also answer the question when to change your TP. For us, we have seen also in the past brand changing TP, for example, when TP were not ready to share data. And I would say this is a no-go for us when we start working with a TP and we ask some of the metrics and the TP just refuse to share the metrics. So this is a really bad indicator to us to say, okay, I mean, he might certainly be willing to hide something by not sharing with us the metrics. So, or he doesn't trust us enough to work hand in hand. Sometimes TP see the agency as a competitor, so we always have a time to teach them. Usually, it's really what it is, to say, no, we are here to help you. If we build the brand on top, that will bring you more people in your funnel, and you will be more successful. So we should work hand in hand. So for me, not sharing the data or the asked data is a key indicator that it's time to change TP. So you can be not happy with the sales, but if on top of that they are not sharing the data to improve or willing to help them to improve, then it's a big no-go, and then it's better to change.
Agree. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So we still have 2 questions to go. So next question is, should I build my in-house e-commerce team versus hiring a TP?
Sure. Yeah, I think that kind of relates also to the topics or the conversation we just had, right? On the one hand, it's like, when do I change TP? But perhaps also at some point you get the question, but do I actually need a TP? And is it perhaps more beneficial to take it in-house? I mean, in a country like China, where more than 50% comes from online sales, e-commerce is an extremely important part for most brands to generate their revenue, right? It's online. So if you look at a business model of a typical TP, normally they charge a fixed monthly retainer, and it's a variable cost, right? It's a sales commission, and so of course, when you first enter the Chinese market, a TP is the best way to do that, because you don't have any experience in China yet. You most likely don't have an established team in China yet. So this is the way to learn. We always say, like, there's no one silver bullet for success. It is all about trying things, small scale, learn from it, and pivot to success. So you can do that together with your TP, but at some point, also financially, there is this break-even point where it makes more sense perhaps to take some of the parts in-house. So we do see, because the e-commerce is such important to your sales, because like Benoit said, that you want to have full access to your data, and because you want the opportunity to learn, it might make more sense to take part of it online. There are ways we see hybrid models with our customers where, for instance, customer service is either outsourced if it's a relatively simple product, but if the product takes a lot of education, like when we work with Suit Supply and it's really about fashion style, they want that customer support in-house, because that's really one of their key differentiating factors, right? So you can consider about your customer service to take that away from the TP. Your logistics, we often suggest to have that with a third-party logistics provider or still your TP, and you have your actual store operations. Now, I think one thing that I also like to mention is that even if you have it fully outsourced to a TP, you need to make sure either you have your own in-house e-commerce manager that challenges your TP, or work with a company like CHAOLY, or have at least some form of external or independent audit of what is going on with your online performance. And challenging your TP, yeah, is always a good thing to do.
Now, I will come on the last part that you mentioned. We always like to work with tools like CHAOLY to actually have an external vision. And we believe, even as an agency, or I believe the TP that are willing to improve are always happy to have an external vision on their metrics. It's a true truth. So it's the moment of truth. And then when you look at the metrics, okay, have we done our job properly or not? But if it's only if you accept this that you can actually grow and learn and make it different. So it's also the only way to actually start leading your specific focus area. If you always follow the other and you don't try to learn and improve, then it will be really difficult for you to actually become the first one, become the leader of your industry. So we believe here having your e-commerce team in-house is also possible, but it also means you might need to challenge your own team from the outside point of view, and also go for such tool like CHAOLY tools to be able to have external metrics and give a true feedback to your own team. So yes, having your own e-commerce team inside makes sense at one moment in your development in China. In our wording internally at Duhno, we usually call it the phase 2 of entering the Chinese market. With phase 1 is, okay, I will go with one TP, it will do this job. Then I get the learning and I start to have one person or two in China that will support the different partners that I have in China to go for the next job. So that's phase 2. And you start to have your own small team, basically. So it comes usually because you have also a return on investments in China. At that moment, you can also invest in additional working resources in China to go for a bigger market piece, I would say.
Absolutely.
You're muted, Ting.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
So yeah, we are done. So if you have any questions, so just feel free to write it down, or you can take the mic directly. It's up to you.
Sure. I guess that's like one remark is that it is all about collaboration, right? And also, I would say trust. From our experience, we often are perceived as like a police officer. Or Benoit, when you say if you ask for certain metrics, perhaps your TP is hesitant to give it to you. However, how are you able to measure, right? If the data, it starts with data. We say data has the answer that allows you to see what is working so we can further scale up, or what isn't working, and you learn from that, right? So if you don't have that learning mindset, but also the mindset that you do it together with your agency as Duhno, or with your external partner with data, CHAOLY, and your TP and your brand, you all have the same objective, right? So it should be a win-win, and that learning mindset and that collaborative mindset, I would say, is extremely important to ultimately become successful in the long term.
Yeah, when we work together, we run editorial meetings. That's how we call them, on a monthly basis with the partners, everyone involved in the sales process, from marketing to sales, and we try to align all these people toward the same objective. So, 11/11 is coming. This is the big thing. So everyone is on the deck to try to reach it. So, okay, what are the key focus? Where people should do? Where are we putting the energy? So this is key. And on our side, we try to force that rhythm from the agency side. But we are happy when partners like you, CHAOLY, also run these kind of meetings regularly, because we know that, okay, this is a moment of sharing. This is a moment of alignment. And then we have the right people in the right seats. That's how we say it. It's basically, okay, we have the metrics on one side, we have the branding on another side, we have the sales on another aspect, and everyone is toward the same goal. So we are building a team. And we are able to build that with the feedback of the data. Everyone, we can look truly at the data, and you need to create an atmosphere with your partners that, hey, it can grow, it can work, and we can do mistakes on the way, of course, but we can grow and progress together.
Sure. Yeah, that's also really like the growth hacking mindset, right? It's like it's okay to fail, to make mistakes, as long as they're small in terms of consequences and financial risks. But yeah, that allowing that to happen really fosters the growth later on. Yeah.
Okay, and I do have a question.
I do have a question
for you too. So could you please share a case study showing people who are with us today how working with you has bring the brand to the next level? So I guess the main issue very often is the cost, the budget. So people don't want to invest into other partners. So how working with you could be a good investment, simply put.
Sure. Was that a question to Benoit, right?
No, to both of us. Allow me to answer then. Okay, I can answer with one of the example that we have. So we have worked with a brand that was actually declining in China. So they were traditional in China for 20 years in China, really engaged into the market, but they haven't started their digitalization. And when we started to work together, they were more eager to spend less and less into the Chinese market because they didn't understand what was happening. So I would say by going through first a series of couple of workshops to identify what we say the persona from the key metrics, what was working, not working, trying to focus on certain aspects, we have been able to let the brand understand what was going wrong. And especially there was one competitor in their category in China that they haven't identified because there was a sweet type of cookies. And actually in China, one of their competitors was a salty brand. And which didn't resonate for them, and they never had identified that competitor in the map. And by looking at the data, understanding this, they have been able, even later down the road, to create some salty products themselves to be able to go on this market, which they haven't identified before. So I would say it's not necessarily a lot of budget at the beginning, but it's to put that money to really understand what is working and not working, so then you can change. So this is what we try to bring, and those editorial meeting is a way every month to challenge ourselves about our status quo, or shall we change something? Shall we try something new? So I would say on our side that's the way we use that. I don't know, Daphne, on your side, if you have one case you want to share.
Well, yeah, it always also depends, as you said, like on the budget. So often brands are disappointed, or like you said, they have declining sales. They're not in the best financial situation, right? So what we always aim to do is to start small, like with a one-time audit, because from literally any client, whether it's a really famous spirits brand to a unknown TV mount brand, there is low-hanging fruit. And as much as you expect your TP, for instance, to see that, that's just often not the case because there's too many things also to work on or to look at, right? So we like to come in. So one of the clients is actually a stationery brand with their headquarters in Europe, and they asked us to have a look at. They weren't satisfied with the results, and so we said, well, let us do an audit first. And we were very clearly able to do that diagnosis and to identify the pain points, right? So we broke it down in the traffic or the awareness, in the conversion rate, and the average order value. And we could clearly see, also looking at their competitors and their competitor performance, that their average order value was much lower than the competitors. And also that there were some issues with the traffic tools, the paid traffic tools that were being used, which didn't generate the conversion or the sales you would expect, right? So we start always, it's almost like going to a doctor. We do our diagnosis, we see where are the pain points, and we can then already specifically mention some minor things that can be changed today or tomorrow. And then you already see some improvements, and that leads more to a longer term collaboration. But indeed, we want to make sure that the easy wins are there for the take.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think that's it for today then. Thank you again, Daphne and Benoit. So I will send you the coming days the webinar replay along with the white paper. And in 2 weeks' time, we have another webinar, so with another partner, so how data can make e-commerce easier. And yeah, I invite you to scan the QR code and to participate in the next webinar. And if you have any other question, if you are too shy maybe to ask question in the chat today, you can send an email directly to Benoit or Daphne. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for your sharing also, Daphne. Thanks for the different sharing here today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And we'll speak soon. Feel free to reach out to any one of us. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Ciao.